This is my 1961 Bronica S. Now this is a medium format single lens reflex camera. It's a system camera, meaning that the backs, the viewing hoods, and the lenses are all interchangeable. And this camera is a follow-up to the 1959 Bronica D. And I made a video on this guy a little while back, so I'll put it in the description. So this camera, when it came out, it was sort of Bronica's no expenses spared ultimate camera. And the price when new, after adjusting for inflation, was around $7,000. And a Hasselblad at the time only cost $4,700. So it was a lot more expensive, but it also had a lot of features that set it apart. And check out that video as I go into them in quite a bit of detail. So the Bronica S, when it was new, it cost $3,500 when adjusted for inflation. So roughly half the cost of the D. So to bring the price down lower, Bronica would have to omit some of the features of the D, but it retained a lot of the best ones. So let me go over this camera and I'll show you why it's my favorite film camera that I've ever owned. So starting from the front, the lens that this camera came with is the same as the one found on the Bronica D. It's a 75mm f2.8 Nikon lens, and you can also see that it looks like a pancake lens. And the reason for that is because it actually protrudes quite a bit into the body. So this camera is using the same mirror mechanism and lens mount as the Bronica D, meaning that instead of having a mirror that travels upward, it has a mirror that slides and goes underneath the lens along with a cover that covers the viewing screen. Now the advantage of that is it gets your lens as close to the film plane as possible, which A, lets you make smaller lenses, and B, allows you to produce lenses that are faster than would otherwise be possible had they been mounted further out. Mind you, they would be possible, they would just be a lot bigger. So for example, this is the 80mm lens. You can see it's not much bigger than the 75, but this one is an f2.4. So now in Hasselblad, the fastest 80 you could get on the old 500cm system was an f2.8 planar lens. So I'll continue on with an overview of this camera from the front. And you know what, I'll grab the Bronica D and I can show you some of the features that were omitted. So start from the front, you have your shutter buttons, depth of field preview. Missing from the front on the S is the focus lock. On the side, you can see, they got rid of the slow speed, the 0 to 10 second slow speeds, as well as the self timer, and they put the regular shutter speeds on this side. On this camera, the shutter speeds were set on the knob, and they went up to all the way up to 1/250th, and on this camera they brought it down to 1/1000. So if you look on this side, on the focus knob side, because there's no you no longer set your shutter speeds here, what they did was they implemented a winding crank. Alright, the focus mechanism is still the same. So you still have a wheel that you rack to where you can rack focus. It's a little bit different in that on this camera your focus distances are marked on the barrel, and on this camera, on the S, they're marked on the wheel. And what you'd actually have to do is after if you switch the lenses, you could rotate this and it lets you change the focus scale to a different lens. Alright, so from the top you have your viewfinder. It's similar to the one found on the D in that to get your viewing magnifier, just press down The sides are still made of titanium. The back still has an automated dark slide release. So what Bronica did is, instead of having switches to release the back and accidentally releasing the back, you could only release the back by inserting a dark slide. And the other really cool thing is you would never ever forget to leave the dark slide in the back, because as soon as you put it on, the camera automatically ejected the dark slide. Also, let me open the back here. So although the back is a little bit different, it still retains the film tensioning system of the Bronica D. So what Bronica did was it implemented this film tensioning system to have the film as flat as possible against the film plane, with the advantage being that the flatter you can get the film, the sharper you can get the image. On the bottom, worth noting, is they actually added a feature on the Bronica S, and that is a mirror lockup. So you can release the mirror, and that will reduce vibrations. And also they added another threaded cable release. So the cool thing is, the Bronica S2 that came after this lost the mirror lockup feature. So if you do a lot of slow speed shutter photography on a tripod, then you'll want the mirror lockup to reduce vibrations. Alright, what else can I tell you? So what are the advantages of this camera? Well, obviously, it's super quick to focus. Images snap into focus extremely well. It's honestly one of the best focusing screens I've ever used. And I've owned a Hasselblad system with Acumatte screens, and although they are slightly brighter, they don't snap into focus like they do on the Bronica. Sorry, the images don't snap into focus. So I've rarely ever missed focus using my Bronicas. The one disadvantage, perhaps there's two big disadvantages to the Bronica S that I personally don't like. One is when you wind the film, mind you there's no film inside right now, it takes 2 or 3 rotations to wind the film and crank and cock the shutter. And unlike a Rolleiflex or a Hasselblad or pretty much any other camera which is just one rotation, this one it's almost like you're shooting silent movie, and because it ratchets backwards, you never really know where it's gonna stop. To fire the camera without film, you have to remove the back. So I'll show you that. I can show you how the shutter cocks. So it's like 2.5 rotations, and then you'll hit resistance and you just pop it into place. And so that's one of the disadvantages, is it just it's cumbersome to wind the film, and I find the camera's moving in your hands as you're winding it, and so your composition sort of shifting. And the other disadvantage is it's incredibly loud. So it's an incredibly Oh, and if you want to see more videos, more camera reviews, tips, things like that, please subscribe. Please like the video, and I will put out more content. I have a ton of cameras, and yeah, thank you.